Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm your host, Clint Mefford, and we're bringing you the latest cattle news and education. This week, we take a look at consumer preferences. We hear about summer feeder calf sales, discuss the benefits of an intensive health protocol with a Kansas State graduate student, and talk with the 2019 American Angus Association summer interns. This is the Angus Report. Consumers are king, and it's their preferences that drive the business that puts food on the tables of families across the country.
With checkoff-funded resources, we want to make sure we focus on those consumer groups that are going to give us the best opportunity to grow beef demand. And so with a lot of market research, we identified that older millennial parents was kind of our bullseye, and that the reason being, one, they're millennials, but also they're starting to grow in disposable income. They're established in their jobs, starting to have children, and if you want to influence not only the millennials but the next generation, that's kind of the sweet spot, if you will. We talk to thousands of consumers every year, and we want to know not just perceptions and behaviors around our product, beef, obviously, but we don't live in a vacuum, and we need to really understand our competition. And so we do that. We ask the same types of questions for beef, chicken, pork, etc. And one of the things we see is beef is just way, way high and up there in terms of being a pleasurable eating experience, high on taste. Some of the areas that we know we need to focus more on, even though we do score very well on these, is maybe fitting a budget or being more nutritious. We know beef is nutritious, but it's one of those things we need to really stress to consumers and make sure they understand it can be part of a healthy diet.
The famous Beef It's What's for Dinner campaign was developed from research derived from consumer surveys and was so successful it was recently rebranded and relaunched.
The bottom line is that consumers generally don't know a lot about animal production. They don't work on a farm or a ranch, and in most cases they don't live close to a farm or ranch. So you see a lot more uncertainty around what actually goes on and the work that we do, the focus groups that we conduct. You ask consumers those kinds of questions about what really goes on out there, what do you think happens, and they don't have good answers. And sometimes their answers that they do have are based on documentaries they've seen that are not positive towards animal production, and they have a lot of these misperceptions. Beef It's What's for Dinner brand, it's been around for 26 years, but I think in recent years it wasn't being used as much as it should have been, because it really has a lot of tradition to it, a lot of recognition. But before we did anything in that launch, we went out and did a lot of market research and talked to millennials about what their knowledge was, and it's like, I remember, my mom always saying, hey, we're having beef, it's what's for dinner, and hearing the jingle and those types of things. So we saw that it had a lot of equity and that we could really take advantage of that. So we reintroduced the brand, redesigned the Beef It's What's for Dinner website. We actually consolidated 8 separate websites into a kind of an all-encompassing, all things beef website, the Beef It's What's for Dinner website, and we use that. Folks can go out there in a lot of cases for recipes, but they can also find the nutritionals around beef. They can learn about the production practices around beef. If they're interested in that, it's all there.
With so much information available to consumers, they typically stick to certain criteria when making their decision at the meat counter.
Consumers will look at labels and say, gosh, when I look at a label and if I can't pronounce some of the things on that label, or there's 10 or 15 different ingredients, I just wonder about that. And what we know about beef is there's one ingredient. It's beef. It's real beef. In a lot of cases, they're thinking, is my family going to like this? Do I know how to prepare it? Does it fit my budget? But more and more people want to know more about where their food comes from. And when it comes to beef production, for example, they do have questions about animal welfare and the responsible use of antibiotics and hormones, for example. So that's why we spend a lot of time educating consumers on the Beef It's What's for Dinner website and a lot of other places to make sure that they understand beef is responsibly raised. And I think every time we show a video or consumers get to interact with a farmer or rancher, it has such credibility for them. I mean, they walk away from that going, gosh, I had no idea they were so responsible and they do it the right way. What we need to focus on is being able to get that message out much broader, and we're working on that extensively through farm and ranch tours. Now, we can't get every consumer out to a ranch to see how favorable it is, but we can take influencers like chefs and dietitians and those kinds of folks, and when they see that, they have the same type of positive response. So then when they go back and are working with their clients or their customers, that they can share those positive experiences.
It is imperative farmers and ranchers continue the food conversation. For more information and resources, visit beefitswhatsfordinner.com. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more Angus Report after a break.
Welcome back. As the heat of summer blazes on, feeder calf markets continue to fluctuate. Joining us today with an update on summer sales season is Director of Commercial Programs and AngusSource, Ginette Gottswiller.
This year, it has definitely been a year for program cattle to sell very well as Angus sired cattle. They are continually topping each of those video sales. You know, replacement heifers have also sold really well. I think producers should definitely be happy considering the market and the weather situations that are going on in the U.S. right now. I realize it's definitely back from last year. One of the major video sales in Reno, Nevada is one of the first sales that begins in early July. Those calves sold really well that were program cattle, and it didn't really matter what weight class it was. So buyers were definitely looking for program cattle. They were bringing anywhere from $8 to $12 higher than non-program calves. Several of the producers chose to kind of scratch and maybe go a little bit later in the year so that they had time to go on and enroll in some of these value-added programs that's offered by American Angus and the AngusSource program. Moving later on into the year, they moved into Billings. So there's two videos that run in the Billings, Montana area. Both of those videos obviously have some very high quality northern black Angus cattle. Again, premiums were anywhere from that $8 to $12 range a head for program cattle. Even non-program cattle in those areas sell very well. We also had some Angus link calves sell in Montana during that time. Those calves would have been in that Nebraska region where you know the freights are really a good number, and so those calves sold really well. So if we take a look right now at some of those major video sales and determine what's going on and what cattle are actually kind of topping the market. Right now you're looking at those NHTC Never Ever 3 calves doing very, very well. There has been a recent announcement that NHTC cattle tonnage will be going up, and it will be interesting to see how quickly buyers cut back or slow down on purchasing these NHTC calves. Many times by this time in the summer video sales, you can definitely see that the interest in those NHTC calves has started to wane a bit and move back. This year so far it hasn't, but obviously that Cheyenne video is going on right now, so it'll be interesting to take a look at those numbers and see if those NHTC calves are still at the top and those premiums are still being paid. You know, at the video sales this year, obviously Angus influence calves are the majority of those cattle in those sales, and they've been really hot. As everyone knows, everyone wants those black-hided calves that are going to gain and grade well. One of the things that we've obviously seen is producers that go on and list on their video listing what some of the sires that they used in their herds do a little bit better than just the generic black Angus listing. So, you know, if I had some comments to make to producers, I would definitely say, you know, put down what some of your bull battery is so that potential buyers can take a look at that and see if that's a sire that they're interested, that they've had good luck and that they want to purchase those calves. Additionally, give a little bit of information about your vaccination program, what those calves are being fed and how they're being managed, because that's obviously very important to that potential buyer to know a little bit more about what they're getting ready to purchase. One other tip I would definitely give to producers, especially if they're not choosing to enroll in value-added programs, is if you are still going to doctor any calves, to make sure and pass that information along once you're selling those calves, especially going maybe to a sale barn or such. If a feed yard did get some of your calves and they knew that you already used a product, that way they would be able to choose maybe a different antibiotic if that calf becomes ill again. So just passing that information along and documentation would be one of those recommendations for producers who choose not to enroll in value-added programs to maybe get a little bit more at the end of the day for their calves if they don't want to spend that money for enrollment. When you look at your calves bringing between $8 to $12 a hundredweight more, it more than pays for itself for you to enroll a load lot of calves. Kind of look at your program. Those calves that are around 100 to 150 head, it obviously spreads that further over each calf versus if you're just enrolling 50 or 70. So think about that as you're looking at those enrollment numbers.
We check in now on the latest cattle market news with the Cattle Facts Update.
Hello and welcome to the Cattle Facts Update. I'm Patrick Linnell. The recent breakdown in U.S. and China trade relations has shaken markets across the board. Stocks, crude oil, soybeans have all seen significant pressure, not to mention lean hog futures. U.S. pork exports to China in June were up 189% from last year, as African swine fever continues to drive meat imports to fill the protein void. But with the escalation of trade tensions, the Chinese government has halted further purchases of U.S. agricultural products as of August 5th and canceled a large purchase of U.S. pork. Still, the sheer size of the protein void in China due to ASF will at minimum indirectly support U.S. pork demand, as the U.S. could fill in gaps as other pork exporting countries divert their shipments to China. Nonetheless, with record large U.S. pork production, exactly how much Chinese ASF supports U.S. pork export demand is important. In addition to significantly impacting pork prices, stumbling pork exports could present an additional risk to the beef and cattle markets as well. The relationship between the beef and pork cutouts is not perfect, but it does exist. The beef cutout rarely exceeds a threefold premium to the pork cutout, except during the spring grilling demand period. Cheaper pork could be another price-limiting factor to beef, especially if a slowing in the domestic economy pushes consumers towards cheaper meat proteins. Historically, 52 pounds of annual pork consumption per capita has been a critical level for pork prices in the U.S. With pork supplies greater than 52 pounds per capita, pork prices tend to see significant pressure as consumers have to be incentivized to buy the large quantities of pork to clear the market. Pork production is expected to be a record 27.4 billion pounds in 2019, and Cattle Facts is forecasting a 10% growth in U.S. pork exports. This would result in per capita pork consumption of 51.8 pounds in 2019. If exports fall short of the forecast, more pork will be left on the domestic market and supplies could easily surpass the 52-pound mark. Should this occur, both pork and beef prices could feel the pressure of the trade tensions heating up. For the Angus Report and Cattle Facts, I'm Patrick Linnell.
To learn more about Cattle Facts, your leading source for beef industry market information, visit cattlefacts.com.
Next on the Angus Report, we learn how to select the right health protocol for your region. Stay with us.
Welcome back. The first step to increasing value is implementing the proper health protocols specific to your region. We caught up with Maggie Smith, an animal science graduate research assistant at Kansas State University, to discuss her research on the effect of various health and vaccination programs on the sale price of beef calves.
So we looked at 4 different regions. We took a look at the West Coast, the North Central area of the country, the South Central, and the Southeast. And through a multiple regression model, we were able to account for various factors from a marketing, management, physical, and lot standpoint, and then see how those potential factors may play a role on influencing sale price. We looked at a variety of programs that are actually outlined within Superior Livestock, and we looked at BAC 24, BAC 34 and 34 plus, and BAC 45 and 45 plus. And BAC 24 is a program where producers vaccinate once while the calves are 2 to 4 months of age. 34 programs, calves are actually vaccinated twice, and producers have different options in terms of time of administration and meeting those requirements. And our BAC 45 programs are the more intensive ones where weaning must be associated for a minimum of 45 days, and the vaccination requirements are a little more intensive in that regard. So overall, we saw high premiums associated with the BAC 45 programs in all regions, and can definitely see from that information that the management practice of weaning along with vaccinating is surely valued by buyers. For an example, from the North Central region, which would be closer to the highest concentrated area of cattle feeding, we found a premium of around $5 for a BAC 45. And then when we looked at the Southeast, that premium actually increased a little bit and was right around $8.50 a hundredweight. So we found that as potential transportation distance increased from point of origin to potential delivery location, which we would consider probably the central part of the United States, that the value for a vaccination and health program actually increased, showing that the farther the distance the calves might have to travel, the more that an intensively managed vaccination program would pay off. So all in all, it's really up to the choice of the producer and what best fits their management and marketing goals and the resources they have available in terms of labor and facilities. And I think all in all, we can say here that maybe premium doesn't necessarily equate to profit, and there's a lot of other factors that play into it, such as the region or area of the country in which you raise livestock.
Up next, we sit down with young professionals who are part of the 2019 Association Summer Intern Program. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Angus Report. During the summer months, the American Angus Association staff grows as our summer intern program takes off. These young leaders are an integral part of the success of various programs, both in and out of the office. Let's take a closer look.
What are you doing with your hands? I don't know, just sitting in here. Yeah, go folks. Have we been rolling the whole time? No. Thank God.
The really great thing about the communications internship is my day-to-day changed literally every day. So my responsibilities could be anything from designing graphics to go on our social media, or it could be writing press releases, or it could be hosting the Angus Report. It really just depended what we needed every day and what events were coming up.
So I think the biggest thing that we had a part of was the contest at Junior Nationals. It was an opportunity for us to kind of be a part of the Junior Nationals in a way where we could have our own little piece of it. So we were in charge of our own perspective contests. And with that, it comes with contacting judges and getting a hold of different people and making sure that everything was set up the way that it needed to be so everything could roll smoothly. And then once we got to Junior Nationals, we had various tasks like running around like chickens with our head cut off.
And then also the lead conference, which was in Nashville. It's really cool to see these kids be so passionate about what they're doing and really want to get involved. They teach you, they really take the time to teach you, and so you take away so much from this experience. You take away so much real world experience.
So as the editorial intern for Angus Media, I worked for the Beef Bulletin and the Angus Journal, editing the stories that are published, and then I also wrote stories for them and took photos as well and covered certain events that the team travels to. I went to, actually on my first day, I went to the Anaplasmosis Symposium at Kansas State University. And then we covered BIF, which is Beef Improvement Federation in South Dakota. I also traveled to the National Junior Angus Show and the lead conference.
So I graduated from Texas A&M in 2016 with a degree in animal science. And since then I've been at Mizzou working on a PhD with Jared Decker in the animal science department working on animal breeding and genetics.
Okay, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty. No, don't look at me.
Sorry. So this summer I'm working on 2 different projects. One of them is an extension of my PhD project, looking at hair shedding in cattle. So we're working on an EPD for that. It's basically an indicator for heat tolerance in cattle. The second one is looking at differences in weaning weight across different environments in the Angus data.
One of the best parts of this internship is the people. And I've had a lot of jobs and a lot of internships, and I've never met a group of people, not only in this office, but in this whole building. People who are inspiring and people who want to be better and work to be the best. And they want to be the best in the industry. And especially in this room, they have a way of making kind of ordinary people extraordinary, and a way of pushing you to your absolute best. And it's pretty awesome to be a part of something bigger than yourself like this place.
My favorite part this summer, I guess, was just, well, I guess there's 2 parts. Learning more about the Angus breed. I didn't grow up in the cattle industry, but certainly coming here, I was able to learn about what all the American Angus Association does, and gain some background in that, and how Angus Media plays a role in that and dispersing information to producers. And then I guess the second part I really enjoyed was just working with the team at Angus Media. They were always willing to let me ask questions and learn about their job, and I was able to really learn about everything it takes to make a print publication and everything else they do here at Angus Media.
I think for me the biggest takeaway this summer is everything you do you're not going to be good at immediately. Like some things are just going to take a lot more work to develop those skills than others. But I think this summer I realized, some stuff is more in depth and takes a little more time and work to do it. But when you finally do kind of get that skill down, or you really understand that concept, the payoff is enormous, and you really feel that sense of fulfillment and achievement because you work to develop that skill.
If someone were to ask me if they should apply for this internship, I would say do it without a doubt. It's been one of the most incredible things that's ever happened to me, and I want everyone to be able to feel like I feel after they leave an internship. Plus, I want to see Jackie and Caitlin be able to pick the best of the best next year, because it's going to be hard to top our little duo we've got going on here.
Again, with Ches, I would say go for it. I mean, you'll never regret trying.
I would say definitely do it. It's been a great experience for me, both in terms of the people I've met and the relationships that I'll be able to. I have more people I can ask for help now, right? And I think that there's no other place you're going to be able to get this kind of experience with the data in the beef industry, at least.
Next on Time with Tay and Ches, we are going to be discussing
Our favorite snacks.
Oh, yeah.
Gorditos and Mountain Dew.
Yep.
Bangs for me. Energy drinks, for sure.
Yes. Oh, Derby pie. I don't know, the vending machine back there got good snacks. Hit it up. Only 85 cents for a drink. We're out.
Well, we sure are proud of all of the work our interns do on behalf of the American Angus Association. And that's a wrap for this week's Angus Report. Tune in next week for industry-leading news and education, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Angus TV, for more highlights from the association. We'll see you next week.